2 days before the biggest arrest in the history of international soccer, an encrypted email lands in his inbox. No name attached. No explanation. Just a time, a date, and 5 words. Zurich. May 27th. Watch the hotel. He almost deletes it. Almost. That same night, an unknown number calls his phone twice. He lets it ring out, both times. 5:30 a.m. Zurich, Switzerland. Most of the city is still asleep. He isn't. Because in about 90 seconds, unmarked cars are going to pull up outside one of the most expensive hotels in the world, and the men about to be arrested run the most popular sport on the planet. Doors open before breakfast is even served. Among those escorted out, Jeffrey Webb, a FIFA vice president once tipped as the organization's next president. Eugenio Figueiredo, Eduardo Lee, men who controlled billions of dollars in broadcasting deals, walked out in bathrobes, past confused hotel staff still setting up the buffet. Hotel security cameras would later show the exact moment, time-stamped, silent, and impossible to dispute. This actually happened. May 27, 2015. Money rarely disappears. It changes addresses. And for 24 years, it had been changing addresses all over the world, until someone finally decided to follow it. To understand why this morning happened, and why, 11 years later, it happens again, we have to rewind, all the way back to how a game played by kids in the street turned into one of the most quietly corrupt institutions on earth. FIFA doesn't play soccer. FIFA sells soccer. Broadcasting rights, sponsorship deals, World Cup hosting decisions, all controlled by one organization, worth billions of dollars a year, with surprisingly little oversight for an organization that size. So he opens a file. Case name, FIFA. Prosecutors would eventually charge this case using RICO, a law originally built to dismantle the mafia. Because somebody, somewhere, finally decided this wasn't corruption anymore. It was organized crime with a scoreboard. From above, Zurich and Miami looked nothing alike. One gray and European, one bright and tropical. From above, the money moving between them looked identical. At the exact same hour that morning, FBI agents walk into the headquarters of CONCACAF in Miami, Florida, the organization running soccer for North and Central America. Same morning, same investigation, different country. And this part isn't a coincidence. For years, someone inside FIFA had quietly been helping investigators build their case. Nobody outside a small circle of agents knew who. The truth was stranger than an outsider. It was one of FIFA's own, a former CONCACAF official named Chuck Blazer, secretly wearing a wire for the FBI after being targeted over bribes tied to the 1998 and 2010 World Cup bids. The biggest scandals rarely begin with outsiders breaking in. They begin with insiders finally deciding to talk. 14 people were named in that first indictment alone, 9 soccer officials, 5 marketing executives, accused of taking in more than $150 million combined. Not in one bad year, over more than 2 decades. One of those 5 marketing executives ran a sports business based in Argentina. Even in 2015, before any of this repeated itself, Argentina's name was already in the file. He pins photographs, pulls string across a corkboard. One name keeps reappearing, Jack Warner, a former FIFA vice president from Trinidad, accused of taking millions in bribes tied to marketing rights and hosting votes. He fled to Trinidad, resisted extradition for years, and was eventually banned from soccer for life by FIFA's own ethics committee. One of the most jaw-dropping allegations on the board? Officials allegedly took bribes to help decide which country would host the 2010 World Cup, a tournament watched by over 1 billion people, allegedly, partly decided behind closed doors. 1 billion people watching. And somehow, the only ones who didn't know were the 1 billion people watching. Power doesn't corrupt overnight. It rewards silence first, quietly, for years, until silence just becomes a culture. Days after the arrests, FIFA President Sepp Blatter, the most powerful man in world soccer for nearly 2 decades, resigns. Not personally charged in this case. Just suddenly done, for days after winning re-election to a 5th term. Jeffrey Webb, the man once considered his heir, later pleads guilty to racketeering and money laundering conspiracy, agreeing to forfeit more than $6 million. Before we go further, what would you have done? You're a federation president. Everyone above you is already taking money. Saying no could cost you your career. Saying yes could cost you everything. There's no clean answer. That's exactly why so few people gave one. History whispers before it screams. In a public records archive, he finds old newspaper clippings, reporters asking the same uncomfortable questions years before anyone acted. The evidence was never hidden. It was just filed somewhere nobody important was reading. Fast forward 11 years. A World Cup hosted right here in the United States. Lionel Messi chasing back-to-back titles. And somewhere in the middle of the celebration, a familiar knock. In 2026, the FBI and the Department of Justice reportedly opened a preliminary investigation into Argentina's own soccer federation. At the center of it, AFA President Claudio Chica Tapia, and a company called Torprodenter LLC, run by Javier Ferroni and his wife, Erica Gillette, which reportedly handled the federation's international commercial contracts. According to reports reviewed by Argentine newspaper La Nación, that company moved over $260 million in AFA revenue through 5 American banks: Citibank, Synovus, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan Chase, and PNC Bank. Roughly $57 million of it, the reports allege, went to companies with no identifiable service, some tied to individuals who, according to official records, receive social welfare benefits and live in Bariloche. Investigators reportedly spent nearly 3 hours questioning businessman Guillermo Tafoni, the original complainant whose testimony helped trigger the scrutiny in the first place. To be clear, no charges have been filed. The AFA denies any wrongdoing, and Tapia's allies argue the case is politically motivated, tied to his tense relationship with Argentina's president. This investigation, as of now, remains preliminary. But back home, a separate case was already circling him. Argentine prosecutors investigating unpaid Social Security contributions worth roughly 19 billion pesos. A judge issuing a travel ban, and professional clubs going on strike and protest, calling it political persecution. And here's the detail that almost writes itself. While all of this was unfolding, Argentina's next World Cup match sent them to face a familiar opponent, Switzerland. The same country where this entire story began 11 years earlier, in a hotel most fans never think about. Different decade, different continent. Somehow, the same spreadsheet. Facts don't disappear. Only the people looking for them do. Until, every so often, someone doesn't stop looking. If you found this money trail first, would you publish it, hand it to the FBI, or pretend you never saw it? That's the real question sitting at the center of every one of these stories. Not who took the money, who noticed, and what they decided to do about it. The biggest scandals don't begin with criminals. They begin with people who stop asking questions. So who's really responsible? 11 years and one ocean apart? Nobody with a single face. No secret villain in a boardroom. Just an entire system where looking away was always easier than asking twice. Silence is never free. Someone always pays the difference. He closes the file, turns off the desk lamp. One clue on the board is still unmarked. The sender of that first email, never identified. Same banking system, same sport, same kind of silence, right up until someone decides to start counting again. Maybe football didn't get cleaned up in 2015. Maybe it just got better at whispering.